All right, thank you everybody for joining us. This is the first attempt at what could be an annual event, but we're going to extend our usual BN by the numbers. We have quarterly economic updates, and we thought it'd be a good idea to bring other people up to speak so you don't have to listen to me ramble every single quarter. So for this one, we're going to extend it. We've got other speakers that will be following me. We'll follow the same format though, as far as an economic update first. Then we're going to go into an update from our housing study. Then we're going to jump into an update from the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. There's been some new incentive programs that have recently been approved. After that, we're going to have Nick from the EDC come up and talk about the supply that we have for land and available buildings. And then we're going to finish up with a roundtable of our partners in the utility industry, which brings me to our lunch sponsor. So I can get a round of applause for Nicor Gas for all the wonderful food. And specifically Bernie Anderson. He doesn't want me to say that, but he helped out a ton with this event. Okay, our other sponsors for BN by the numbers, Illinois State University, Central Illinois Regional Airports, WGLT, Serban, Cumulus Radio, 107.7 The Bull, Cities 92.9, and Magic 99.5. My name is Patrick Hoban. I am the CEO of the Bloomington-Normal Economic Development Council. I've got a bachelor's from Millikan University, ended up going through the Economic Development Finance Professional designation for National Development Council. Followed that up by going to the University of Oklahoma's Economic Development Institute. Nick actually just completed this, and he's getting ready to sit for an exam to become the second certified economic developer in Central Illinois. So no pressure on Nick, but everybody say a prayer for him while he studies. Then after that, I ended up finishing up at the University of Notre Dame. I know we have some fellow domers in the house with a master's in business analytics. All right, so because we do have some new faces in the crowd, bear with me, all the locals. I wanted to go ahead and give a recap on how we got here, because usually these are quarterly economic updates. I'm not going to do this justice the way that Mayor Coos and Mayor Mboka have as we've taken this story on the road. Recently with the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, before that the German Chamber of Commerce, but this is a condensed version of how we got here in Bloomington-Normal, why we have all this momentum on our side. So 2015, Mitsubishi had closed, and it was all hands on deck. There was a great opportunity on what could take place there, but there was people coming and going, and I believe you guys took this overseas as well to try to gain interest in this empty plant. Rivian Automotive, everybody knows Rivian now. In the beginning, there wasn't a lot of, I'd say, belief in the beginning of it, except for the locals. So my predecessors, Mike Grady's in there, Kyle Ham, Pam Reese, who's with us today, and Mayor Coos, and then Zach in the back with Rivian. Oh, that's weird. So Rivian brings new hope in 2016. And I think at the time when the incentive agreement was developed, the goal was to create about 500 jobs. I want you to keep that 500 in mind as we start ramping up. After that, 2017, Brandt comes in. Another wonderful story behind that. And again, like, we're not going to tell all the stories of this. If you want some one-on-one time, I'm sure that we can get Coach Mack to tell this one, bring Mayor Coos up for another great example of how Rivian happened. In 2019 Q4, Rivian had hit 300 employees. And then Brandt met their benchmarks as well. At that time, commercial permits was about $100 million, 2018, also 124 in 2019. When it comes to investment in the community, those are great numbers. And then, of course, the pandemic hits. So the pandemic hit everybody. It didn't hit us as hard as it did other areas. We were actually ranked number 3rd or 4th best place to live post-pandemic. And that had to do with the industries that we have here. After that, Contech came in. They brought 100 jobs over by our airports. And actually, you can't see the quarters as I go by because my head's in the way. Let's move this over here. So 2020 Q2. Normal did a wonderful deal with a warehouse that we had up north. That warehouse now is actually doubled in space, and they cut the ribbon on it, I think last week or the week before. After that, Ferrero Chocolates, they came in and decided they were going to invest $75 million. This one, we were actually in competition with Canada and Mexico. I came to town. They had said, hey, we're importing our chocolate right now. We would like to make this chocolate right here in Bloomington-Normal, but we're going to need some help from the state of Illinois and your locals in order to pull this off. This was really personal to me because I live right behind this. So I'm hoping that the whole neighborhood smells like chocolate pretty soon. And it was funny during this negotiation process. I was actually sitting down at Maggie Miley's when I got the phone call, and they said, with the pandemic, it's uncertain to make this investment, or if we're going to have to postpone it a couple of years. And he had said, we've learned a couple of things during the pandemic, and that's people love to drink wine and they love to eat chocolate. And so they went ahead and moved forward and told us that they were going to do this right here in Bloomington. Then Rivian Automotive, they were at 300 employees a year before, then they jumped up to 1,000 employees. So momentum was on our side. And this is a rarity when it comes to incentives, but the town had actually given them $1 million grants if they hit a certain benchmark. They hit that benchmark, and Rivian had said, we're doing so well, you can go ahead and keep that money, which is awesome by Rivian. Commercial permit for the end of that year ended up being at $300 million. So over doubled. So investment continues in our area. 2021, end of 2021, Rivian jumped up to 4,000. So we were literally just at 1,000. They were supposed to be at 500. Now they're at 4,000. They ended up going public. Harlan Community College ends up investing in their apprentice program, thanks to Governor Pritzker. The end of that year, we did not hit the same 300 million as the year before, but still over $168 million invested in our community was great. And then Ferrero expanded again. So Ferrero had such a great experience working with the city of Bloomington that they decided they're going to go even bigger and bring their Kinder Bueno line in. And they just broke ground on that. Again, I'm not going to go into every single story, but Mayor Mboka is with us today if anyone would like to hear more about Ferrero's expansion. And that was another 200 jobs. So the first one was 50, then another 200. You can see these are all stacking up. This number is Rivian's. So whenever we're talking about the investment, the need for houses, the need for more buildings, why we're here today is to let you know that momentum is on our side. We're having a lot of people kick the tires, getting tours of the town. We've got a lot of land. Not everything's shovel ready, which is why our utility providers are here. We have some buildings, but the buildings aren't big enough for these suppliers. So we want to let you know that these numbers are really hard to find. You're looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We do have them now, but they're still not showing up in some of the common data. So now wrapping up for Q4 2022, this is how we usually do this. I recap what we did last quarter, talk about what we're going to do going forward. So instead of the whole new year, new me, the EDC is actually stepping into a new frontier with some of our programs, which you will see based off of our strategic plan. This is the process that we usually follow with these. We talk about the impact. So our employment, our retail sales, investment over the last quarter, how we reacted, and then also how we're going to adapt going forward. So impact-wise, it's very important to mention, though, when we look at some of these numbers, there's two separate numbers we're focusing on. We actually have a third that we've added now to look at manufacturing, but there's a difference between our LAUS and the CES. So, and also the MSA itself, whenever it says Bloomington anywhere, it's not the city of Bloomington, it's actually McLean County and DeWitt County. So all of our numbers that get pulled from the Bureau of Labor Statistics are for this shape. So the first one we're going to look at is our local area unemployment statistics. This measures the amount of people that live here regardless of where they work. So they could live in Bloomington-Normal in McLean County, they can work in Champaign, they can work in Kankakee. This is just our workforce base, regardless of where they work. So as you can see, this number, and this is from the census, and I believe it's from 2019. There is a new software out, which we're tracing the entire county to get more accurate counts of the inflow and the outflow. But you can see that circle, that's 57,000 people. Those are the amount of people that live and work in our MSA. And then at 28,000, that's the amount of people that live here that might be driving somewhere else like Peoria or Champaign to work. So LAUS, again, that's our employed residents, regardless of where they work. You can see that that is held steady. And if you look at the 2022 numbers, unemployment wise, we are up just a little bit. It's down overall from 2021, but surprisingly up a bit. So we do have plenty of job openings, but this time last year, we're actually up about 100 people. Then if you look at the actual employment's definitely up. So we went from 88,000 people employed at this time in 2021 to 92,000 people employed at this time in 2022, as we continue to add jobs to the area. And then the labor force is the combination of the unemployed with the employed. And so that is up as well. Now, in order to get the ratio that everybody likes to compare to other areas, we end up taking the employed with the unemployed for your labor force. and then you divide unemployed by labor force to get that unemployment rate. This is what you see a lot of times in the media. It is a ratio. We continue to be at the bottom here at 3.4. So we're a whole point below Illinois. Closest to us is usually Champaign or Springfield, but for Central Illinois, we still remain being below us at 3.4% in unemployment. Now, the current employment statistics, this is the one that we like to focus on because these are the jobs that our employers employ. So regardless of where they live, they can work in Peoria, or live in Peoria, they can live in Champaign and drive over here and work. So these are the amount of people that are actually employed within our metro, regardless of where they live. So this shows 33,000 coming in. Like I mentioned, we do have new technology that will hopefully show us, how many more that's going up after we trace the entire county. We're waiting on that shapefile now. So in CES, this has definitely gone up. So current employment statistics, you can see that this time last year, this is at 9,300 compared to now being at 9,600. However, I have to mention that the manufacturing numbers are still not in this data set. I did find a data set on the Bureau of Labor Statistics that captures it, which we'll get to later, but it's still not included in LAUS or CES. And then seasonally adjusted, we ended up having to do this because we saw a downtick in Bloomington-Normal along with Champaign-Urbana over the summer, and we realized it was because all the students going home. So this just flattens it out. Either way, we're up in both categories. So this is the new one. It's a quarterly census of employment and wages. This one can be broken down by industry. We brought this out at the last BN by the numbers because it was finally being counted. So you can see in 2021, we averaged a little bit below 3,000 when it comes to manufacturing. Now, Rivian's definitely being counted, probably some of Ferrero as well. So that's gone from 2,800 up to 8,700. So whenever people are saying, before we were bringing in developers and asking everyone to start building houses, which is one of the hardest things to do in economic development, because talking to Rivian, we have NDAs. So we know what Rivian was planning to do, but we couldn't tell anybody else that we needed homes and we were going to need buildings for suppliers. These numbers are finally here. And this just happened in January. You can see that jump. So you'll probably start to see more demand when it comes to retail, residential, and some suppliers. Retail sales over that time. This one continues to grow. So we added the gray bar in here, which is our current. So 2020 is in blue, 2021 is the orange, and then gray, you can see 2022. We're every single year just going up. I believe that has to do with the disposable income increasing, but we like to see this, especially the local dollars being spent. And now with some new motor fuel stations in town, you'll probably see this jump up even further because we love capturing outside money. Overall investment for this last quarter. So sum-wise, there was 286 last year. We ended up with 302 at the end of 2022. And then money-wise, last year, as I mentioned, we had 168 million. We ended up hitting 377 million last year. And you can see that all around town. All of our friends that are visiting, please follow up afterwards. We like to do familiarization tours to drive people around. Love seeing cranes. Nowhere near as many cranes as Chicagoland, but there is a lot of activity here. So how do we react to that? At the EDC, we ended up putting in a new strategic plan that was just approved in December. So this is what we're going to do going forward. This is the same flywheel that we've always used, with the theory being that if we have good resources, our businesses will develop. If the businesses develop, they will turn around and invest, which gives more resources or more dollars to invest back in the community to develop our resources. So we don't focus on all of these bubbles like infrastructure and blight elimination. A lot of our partners do, but we like to try to track all of them. So our plan will actually break this down into different areas by priority. We've also changed some of the structures when it comes to our committees. So at the EDC board, to keep us on track and to gather ideas, we have a real estate and development committee, which was one that was really helping out with this initiative moving forward. We have a business and entrepreneurship committee now, which before was just business, but you'll see entrepreneurship is on the rise and some great opportunity for us. And then of course, the last one is workforce, which is most vital right now. You'll see a lot of initiatives underneath workforce. All right, the plan itself has 15 items in it, and we'll go over these one at a time. But you can see over here to the side, like what goals those lie in. You'll see the bulk of them are in developing investments. That's what our focus is. A little bit in developed business. We usually leave this to your chambers of commerce, and they're good partners of ours. And then we have some in developed resources. All right, the implementation. The project management side. Keep moving myself around here. So last year, I believe we were over 100 when it comes to projects as far as people looking at us. And you'll see off to the side, it's a combination really of distribution and manufacturing. We've seen a lot of manufacturing coming back, especially from foreign direct investment. This year, we end up with 90 projects. So we didn't quite hit that 108 mark that we had the year before, but still you can see all those manufacturers that are coming in. I believe Nick and Casey hosted one last week, another foreign direct investment. And we had another site selector in right after that. So they keep coming. The foreign direct investment is interesting. We really have to partner with the state of Illinois because doing business in Illinois is definitely not the same as doing business in Texas, let alone in China, or let alone in Germany. Trying to figure out all of our processes and different incentive programs is it is difficult. We're used to doing it in another country, but luckily we have a lot of allies like Ray Lai that can help people find that there is a way in introducing the companies like Fuyao that have done it and been successful before. So knowing that we do have best practices here that we can duplicate usually sets their minds at ease. Business retention and expansion. This is number 2. It'll stay number 2. We're really interested in helping out our current businesses grow. We'd love to have new businesses come in. Casey is on there. If you haven't met Casey, he's here today. Please set up a BRE visit. Some of the new things that we're working on for our local businesses and offer now is doing economic impact reports. So if you want to know what your individual business means to our economy, we can show you that. We can also use some technology to show you what your labor shed is and possible target markets are. So give Casey a call if you haven't met with him yet. I'm more than happy to run some of these reports for you. But feedback, and Charlie's also working on another survey to go out to do an update on the survey that we did in 2015, I believe. But workforce, top demand. So we want to make sure that we're meeting all those needs as well. Next one, Nick, developer retention attraction. Hopefully most of you know Nick. If not, he'll be speaking later on. We will come to you. Nick's been going on the road. Besides me going to show and Casey's going to shows, Nick and Casey have also left to go tell our story in other areas. Business attraction. This is a fun one. And actually Nick and Casey are taking part as well because we're trying to build a well-rounded team. So Casey recently went to economics, thanks to our partners at Corn Belt. This is a really great conference in order to actually learn best practices, but also to talk to site selectors to find out what the trends are and tell our story at the same time. And as I mentioned earlier, Mayor Cruz had the honor of speaking at the Chinese General Chamber of Commerce up in Chicago. This is a follow-up to one that was also done with Germany. Hopefully next year we can hit the Irish. I say we just go hit every Chamber of Commerce up there, keep the story going, because every time we do this, we get follow-ups. So they come back down, and that's our goal. We go to them, tell the story, invite them back like we're inviting you back to come see the town, because it's one thing to tell the story, and it was a great presentation. But once they get here and they see what's happening and they meet the people, that's how we close the deal. Also, one voice, and I'll admit, I told some of you before this got going, I bit off way more than I could chew this quarter because we're doing this first real estate summit. We're following this up by launching the new community brand next week. And then at the end of the month, we're going to be doing one voice. So we are accepting applications now for anyone that would like to join the 30 community representatives to go out to DC with us. We have selected 3 projects for this year. So we've got some Binward upgrades. We always like to have the sewer upgrades, going back to Sierra to get them road access. And then also another project for uptown drainage for Normal. After that, BN STEM comes in at number 6. You can check out bnstem.org. And this is one section of workforce that we're focused on. We do have consultants that work on these, but it's really for the K through 12, getting them interested in all the cool technology that we have. And they actually have a program coming up, and they're looking for sponsors if anyone's interested, but it's going to be July 17th through the 21st at Bloomington Junior High School. And it's really based off of cybersecurity. After that, number 7 is a Rural Development Fellow, Randall. Not to embarrass her, but if anyone that is in the rural community has not met with Randall yet, she's been going around with Casey, making sure that our services are not only for Bloomington-Normal, but also for the rest of McLean County. It's not just to get your sites into our system, but also to talk about business retention and expansion and make sure that you're aware of the same tools that our businesses have here in Bloomington-Normal. Then workforce attraction. This is a big one that's coming up. It's a long time in the making. We had DCI come in last year. They surveyed the community, had a lot of focus groups, trying to come up with a new brand. This is a 3rd time I've gone through a community branding process. It is a challenge. And it's definitely a challenge where we have dominant twin cities, and we also have the largest county in the state of Illinois to come up with what is that brand that's all encompassing. But we will be launching that next week. Everything's gonna go smoothly because Charlie promised me. And that's gonna be at a 007 theme. So anyone attending, try to wear the bow tie and drink plenty of martinis. All right, next one, the Real Estate Development Summit, number 9, low hanging fruit for me, because it's literally happening like right now. So this is check 1 off the box. Yeah, like I said, the goal of this was to let everybody know, what our demand is. So that'll be our next speakers, talk about supply, and then actually find out from you, what do you need from us to keep this going? Everyone asked me what my goal is, for this year with our economy, and it's not to drop the ball. Like momentum's on our side. We need to keep this going. And to do that, we need product, whether that's housing, whether that's buildings. The demand is here. Next one we've added, why I said this was new frontier for us. I have never done residential expansion or retraction. That is not what economic developers typically do. But because the demand in workforce has been so high, we've actually added this to our strategic plan at the EDC. One of them that Normal just approved is this 477 unit Carden Springs. It's going to be some higher end housing thanks to our study. They were looking at doing this, and then the study, which our next speaker will give an update on, actually pushed them over the edge. And it shows the supply and demand that's needed, but it was proof that we have more ability to rent higher end spaces compared to the student housing. So anyone that came in looking at doing rentals, they would look at the rental market and say, well, your rents are pretty low. And it's like, well, if you take out the student housing, it's a whole new ballgame. So that study was very well done, and we'll have them come up next to discuss that. After that is we need an industrial park, and there's different versions of industrial parks. But right now, the suppliers that are out there, there's a lot of people, manufacturers that you saw are kicking the tires, and we're running out of space. So it'd be nice to have new space created, which hopefully some of the demand and some of the tools that the state will talk about will let you know that we're here to help to get some more industrial space all across the county. And the next one is a little nerve-wracking. This is our entrepreneurship ecosystem. It's something that we do have some in place, but not full blown. So there's different items that are out there. There's some shared spaces that we already have. We do have some great coaches at Illinois Wesleyan for an SBDC. But as far as some things that we've seen in Peoria, some things that we've seen in Champaign, this one is something that is going to be kicking off actually next week. Yeah, so we ended up pushing it back. It was supposed to be yesterday, but thought it was going to snow more than it did, so we pushed it back to next week. But we're going to kick off our entrepreneurship ecosystem as well. And after that, we've got virtual tours. So anyone that's out there that wants us to pay to get drone footage done or pay to have 3D models built of your spec buildings, let us know. We have a line item for that. We want to showcase your properties so we can get them in front of more people. Then after that, we got Smart Cities. This is the Bloomington-Normal Innovation Alliance. This is a collaboration between our universities, the town, the city, the county, just trying to make sure that we're keeping up on best practices when it comes to data sharing, but also infrastructure. And then the last one is our regional collaborative. This has been going on in the background for quite some time. In Chicagoland, there's multiple regional collaboratives because you have to sell your region. Down here, we finally have a logo. There's going to be a whole new brand campaign launch as well. So we have our own that we're going to launch for, what Bloomington-Normal McLean County is, but also the Mid-Illinois Collaborative will be launching soon as well with a new website. Because a lot of us go to different shows, sometimes we're at the same shows together, and we never just sell Bloomington-Normal. We have to sell the entire Central Illinois because that's our labor shed. So it's all the resources whenever businesses are looking to locate here. So this has been a great collaborative with our community or surrounding regional partners, and keep your eye out for that. All right, so those are the 15 that are public. If anyone wants a copy of that, that's more in depth, we'll be able to follow up afterwards with the download. So next steps, like I mentioned, we've got One Voice coming up, going to Washington, D.C., February 28th through March 2nd. If anybody's interested, the application is in our website right now. Also coming in February, we need to get our Community Development Council back together to talk about some startup incentives. So the county itself has dollars left over that were allocated that we were using for recovery funds during COVID to help out businesses that were struggling. Because those dollars are left, we're going to be working on coming up with a possible rent assistance program, meaning that if you've got a home-based business and you'd like to get into a space anywhere in the county, we can identify those spaces. We will treat it like a Shark Tank experience, and we will pay for them maybe up to 6 months to a year, whatever the county approves, in order to get them into some of our vacant spaces. Also, we're looking at utilizing ISU and Illinois Wesleyan to do a startup award. That both universities have their own startup programs. There are competitions. It would be nice if we can keep them here instead of having them go back to the bigger cities. So similar, maybe doing a startup award for rent or just to keep them in our own backyard. And the last one is relaunching the revolving loan fund. The revolving loan fund went dormant for a while, really because interest rates became so low. But now the interest rates are going back up for all of our finance friends in the area or in the room today. This is really gap financing. So if you have somebody that you want to share the risk from, we can offer them a low interest loan as well to make it blended financing to get that deal done. And then the next one is a workforce development strategic plan. So we just met a couple of weeks ago to talk about what our current state is. We're hoping to do a SWOT analysis of that current state in March. And then after that, figure out the future state so we can move forward. There's a lot of great things happening in workforce. It's one of the things that we want to use our branding initiative for, to tell that story in order to retain talent. So all the students that are here right now, all of our Heartland students, also high school students. So in Q1, Q2 is focused on student retention. Q3 is going to be to relaunch our commuting campaign. That's something that we did last year, where we made a donut around our community to attract more people to drive in. And then Q4 is going to be a come home campaign. We're going to go after all of our alumni that might have moved to Chicago or somewhere else to say, hey, if you're tired of the congestion, tired of the higher cost of living, why don't you come home? We've got brand new properties and great places to work. And then, as I mentioned, the brand launch. So that'll be coming up February 4th. Leave tables are sold out for that, but stay tuned that Saturday. Everything that you see that is being advantage on social media, the website, we're all going to flip that over. It'll be the new brand. And then from there, Courtney's with us. We're going to, she's getting nervous already, to start pumping out content to help tell our stories. And some of the brand ambassadors for the launch are actually in the room today. So how you can help with this entire process. One, we need more stories. We need more stories in the community. We've been doing a pretty good job of telling why this is such a great place to do business, but we need your stories on why you love living, working, and playing here. That could be as simple as coming on a podcast. We're also going to work with some of the students around here, name, image, likeness, asking some of our college students to take over our Twitter account, take over our TikTok, as long as they behave. But we will pay them in gift cards to go show off the community from their point of view. Rural development wise, anyone that's in a rural area, please get a hold of Randall. We want to make sure that we're reaching you and servicing you as well. There are incentives that we're going to hear about a little bit later. I want to make sure that you're taking advantage of those. When it comes to Nick, promote your property. If your property is not in our location one information systems database, then it's not in the game right now. So we get a lot of RFPs. We get requests directly from businesses, directly from site selectors. They want to know what's available in the area. And if we don't have it in our system, then we're not actually promoting your property as well as we could. So if you own property in our community, please get it to Nick so we can get it online. And then we've got Casey with business retention. As we mentioned earlier, some of the new services that we offer, some of those studies, get a hold of Casey. And we want to make sure that one, thank you for doing business in our community. Two, ask you if you're growing, and if you're not, what barriers are in the way. And then three, make sure that you're aware of all the tools that can assist as well. And then workforce development. This is a big expansion for us as well. Something that Stephanie's working on with the workforce committee. There's a lot of people doing workforce development. We want to make sure we're capturing all those stories, let everybody know what programs are available that Casey can then take back to those businesses. I hate to say it, but we are a part of a workforce investment. We owe a Opportunity Act. So we've got a board here, and there are federal dollars that are allocated across the state, actually across the nation. I don't like leaving dollars on the table. So there are ways to utilize those dollars, whether that's for training new employees, whether that's for upskilling. Other areas are using their dollars. We're leaving some on the table. So we want to make sure that our businesses are using those, and we'll assist. And also economic development. If you want to talk about anything econ dev, please get a hold of me. We've recently launched a new investor perk program. So I know we get together every quarter, and this data that you're getting, I give you based off of the level of investment that you're on now. We've created a dashboard. So the dashboard will give you unemployment up to date, but then also building permits countywide. So this is a way that you can go in, see what's happening in our community, not by quarter, but by month, whenever they're published. Also, like I said, you'll get the building activity, but we'll do weekly activity as well. So right now my board gets weekly updates, like 5 Bullet Fridays, 5-Minute Mondays, which is what I do in summer here, but at a certain level, you get that as well. So you know what's going on at the EDC. Then also Last level is customized research. So we might as well put some of these data analytic techniques that we have to use for you, work with our partners. But if you guys need any help when it comes to marketing, just research in general, let us know and we can run reports for you. Also, anyone else be a guest on our Building BN podcast? We just did one yesterday with Cybernautic. Very cool story. I had no idea what he was doing over in Africa, so that'll be nice to get that one online, hopefully tomorrow. But if you got a great story about your business, let us know. If you got a great story about living, working, and playing here, we're about ready to launch a new podcast as well. And with that, I will take questions before we jump into the next session. Everyone's anxious for the next one. Awesome.